we should start while we're still semi-sharp.
Yeah, we're so sharp all the time. This is the letters page for Superboy and the Legion 239. But yeah, not much to this letters page.
The Legion Outhouse. That's always what it says to me at first glance.
Really? Legion Outhouse.
The Legion Outhouse.
You're just a country bumpkin. You're always thinking about the outhouse.
They might have outhouses in the 30th century.
The word outpost, that's not like a male thing, right? That's just like it's just like a remote place, right? As an outpost. I wonder why they call it. Maybe somewhere in the military, it's still you go to the outpost to pick up your mail. Is that where the post part comes from?
Maybe it has something to do with the old days and the frontier and the Pony Express and riding across the plains to the next outpost to drop the mail off.
That's why they're using it in this futuristic comic book.
Space Cowboys.
The first letter is from Judy Krause of Boonois, PA, or Boonois. I don't know how you say these localized things. It looks like French, but it could be Brunoy. But it's box 165. You can send her a letter.
Don't dox her. Come on.
I think both the letters in this issue are talking about Superboy and the Legion 234. It's the one that has the crazy composite Legionnaire on the cover. Doesn't look like a good comic to me if I just saw it on the shelf, I don't think.
Yeah, not one of the better composite superhero villains. Some of those guys look pretty cool. The Super Adaptoid, the Composite Superman. There's a
Super Adaptoid? Is that a Marvel thing?
Mm-hmm. He was like a Silver Age Marvel guy. He was all green. He had kind of like Hawkeye's pointy ears and Captain America's star and parts of Iron Man all mixed together.
Wow. So Avengers.
Yeah, he was like an Avengers guy.
Never seen that guy. I remember the Composite Superman. He's half Superman, half Batman, but he has green skin, right?
That's right. And all the powers of the Legionnaires.
Oh, weird. I didn't remember that detail either.
Right. It's so he's sort of peripherally related to the Legion. Like he was, I think he's from the Legion's time, and he was like at some museum that had statues of all of them, and like he got hit by lightning or something, and somehow the statues gave him the powers of all the Legionnaires.
Sounds a little far-fetched.
But then he uses that to go back. He's like a world's finest villain.
What about the Composite Legionnaire? Does that have all the Legionnaire's powers? He looks like Colossal Boy with like a James Brown haircut or something.
Right. But ugly too.
Unlike James Brown, he is butt ugly.
Like maybe he has like the girls. Does he have like the girls' lips or something strange like that? I think it was Rick Estrada, right?
Rick Estrada drew the issue. I don't think he drew the cover. The cover might be Grell. I bet it even says in this letter.
Mm.
Judy Krause says, in my opinion, the Legion at this time is at its best because it has the perfect mixture of science fiction and superheroics. She congratulates or praises Jerry Conway for writing these terrific stories from this era.
Mm-hmm.
The art's good also, although no one can really replace Mike Grell. And I can kind of see that. He was pretty good. But praising Jerry Conway's stories on the Legion, these are among the worst Legion stories. I think Judy Krause is out to lunch. That is, I remember them as being the worst ones. I haven't read these in a long time, but none of them stick in my memory. Maybe they aren't the worst, because the worst ones do remain in my memory, like Dr. Maya Vale and yeah, I guess maybe those are the Roy Thomas ones, right? I don't know. I don't know if the Jerry Conways are the really
no. Well, I think DeMatteis I think wrote the Dr. Mayaville one, but that one is that occupies a weird space, and you might not subscribe to this, but I think a lot of people, it's like that. It's kind of like a Mystery Science Theater 3000, kind of like it's so bad it's good. Or it's just weird. It's interesting because it's so weird and out there.
I should read it again before I make any proclamations. I had to revisit these things because I haven't read them in 20 years.
I just read a page of it at random. Maybe I saw it online, and for some reason, all the Legionnaires are wearing headdresses, like Indian, Native American headdresses.
Oh, really?
I think maybe Chameleon Boy is supposed to be a native. I don't know. It's very weird.
That's in the Dr. Mayavel one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite of the Ditko issues, but it's pretty out there. It's an interesting read. Better, I don't know. Maybe I like grand failures like that more than like kind of the bland Conway, Thomas, Jimmy James issues where it's competent, but it's totally forgettable.
Yeah, I could be at a point in my life where I feel that way too. Like just your average run of the mill thing that's competent isn't as good as like you say, right. The grand failure, totally out of left field weirdness.
Right.
Yeah. So maybe I would like that comic. I'll have to read that.
Probably not, but maybe we'll cover it.
I mean, we read one of the Ditko backup stories not long ago.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't think too much of that one, but
I remember, and I kind of liked it.
Yeah, we had a huge argument.
I liked it. I liked the inks, and you did not, alas.
Oh, really? That's Dave Hunt did that one, right?
Mm-hmm. Just lacked the refinement and sophistication to appreciate.
I like stupid stuff, but I also hate stupid stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. See, we have a Star Wars reference snuck in here.
Wait, where's that?
In the response to Judy's letter.
This is Paul Levitz answering this letter. He says, no more Mike Grell in the foreseeable future. Jim Starlin drew this issue, 239. Howie Chaykin, fresh from drawing Star Wars, is going to do a Legion comic.
Fresh from Star Wars.
I wonder why he didn't just say fresh from drawing Star Wars.
He's trying to be Stan Lee, I guess.
How many issues of Star Wars did Chaykin draw? He drew Star Wars #1, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he just did the adaptation of A New Hope.
Oh, he wasn't doing that regular series?
I don't think so. If I remember right, maybe it was intended originally just to be like a 4-issue miniseries covering the movie, but it was successful enough that they just kept going. And then I don't know who took over first. I know Carmen Infantino did it for a really long time.
Did Simonson do that? He was doing Battlestar Galactica, wasn't he?
Yeah, he did some Star Wars too.
I never read any of that stuff. When I was a kid, I feel like those kind of licensed comics just were going to be junk, so I never read any of it.
You were probably smart.
Yeah, but people now, they're like, oh, G.I. Joe, it was great. Battlestar Galactica by my favorite artist, Walt Simonson, et cetera, et cetera.
Like Walt isn't quite, he hasn't like matured yet. His art isn't as good, though his covers are really sharp. Like I want to do that a 70s issue of Legion I really want to cover, but it doesn't even really look like him. He's like kind of buried under who inked that?
Jack Abel. It had to be Jack Abel.
It was Jack Abel. And it's fine, but it's not awesome like I think most of his work later becomes. And that probably doesn't really happen until he starts inking his own stuff in the 80s. Like the Chaykin stuff too, like the Chaykin Star Wars. It doesn't look like Chaykin. At least not what I think of as Chaykin.
Yeah, I think it took him a little while. Yeah, I mean, I first saw Chaykin with like the Black Hawk miniseries. I think that's probably the first stuff of his that I really looked at. And then I saw, Iron Wolf maybe? Maybe I saw some excerpts of that. I'm like, this is not even the same guy. Like you can kind of see some of the quirks and ticks of fully formed Chaykin, but that's it. It really looks like a totally different artist.
Chaykin and Simonson have a lot in common with the way they stylize. They very angular, chiseled faces, and like I remember early on mixing them up sometimes. But Simonson's a lot more versatile, I think, than Chaykin.
Yeah, I think like Simonson kind of from what I know, not being the expert that you are.
Mhm.
He has a lot more dynamic kind of like figure stuff.
Mhm.
His people are moving in all 9 dimensions, whereas
Right.
Chaykin is a little bit more static and designy, I
Right.
guess.
Right. And all Chaykin's protagonists look exactly the same.
But yeah, we'll have to look at the Howard Chaykin and then the Walt Simonson Legion issues someday. Or we could do a retrospective of Walt Simonson Legion comics because he's done 3 or 4.
Mhm. Chaykin, what did he do? What am I forgetting? Did he do a Legion?
Yeah, he's drawing the next issue of Legion of Superheroes, it says. Right? It says that's why he's mentioned in here.
I just didn't know if it actually materialized or not because I don't remember it.
I'm pretty sure he did 1 issue.
Mm.
Like they must have been having a lot of trouble because there's a lot of like kind of one-off, like the fact that Simonson and Chaykin and Starlin did Legion as
Right.
one-offs. I'm not.
But I think a lot of those guys grew up fans of Legion and wanted to take a crack at him, but didn't want to be stuck on that book regularly drawing 10 zillion characters.
Yeah, like if the environment in like 1977 was at the same was operating the way it does now or something, they would just have each of these guys do a 4-issue thing and they put it in trade paperback later on, right?
Right.
Instead of just getting them to do 1 issue and then you never see him again. But also those guys are famous now, so you had to give them a big paycheck to do 4 issues, but they would make some more money too because out of a book. I don't know, whatever. Next letter is from Ed Via of Roanoke, Virginia. I think this guy's a returning letter writer. He pans the Legion Superheroes number 234, Composite Legionnaire issue. I think it's funny, though. He says the story in 234 ended up with nothing to differentiate it from the other mass destruction, let's knock everything down and see if anybody minds stories that Jerry seems so fond of writing.
Right.
It's like he's read enough Jerry Conway comics to know the whatever the Jerry Conway formula or the style.
Right.
Like I would never be able to say that. Like this is just like all the other Jerry Conway comics.
And he had hoped that the poor characterization was due to the lack of space, and he thought that would be corrected now that they have 34 pages. But he feels like he just padded it out with more explosions instead of doing more character work.
It's funny that he thought that the bigger page count would enable the writer to add more depth to the prose.
Right.
But yeah, Jerry doesn't. Jerry just blows it. He squanders that opportunity.
Good going, Jerry.
But he doesn't mind the Composite Legionnaire concept.
Just want to say, Jerry Conway, good politics. Maybe not the best Legion writer, but good politics.
Yeah, he seems like a cool guy. Fellow Virgo.
Right.
I think, yeah, he has the same birthday as me.
Yeah, I enjoy some of his rants on Twitter against those guys.
I don't think I ever see his tweets, really, but yeah, I see him talk about the, like, quotes from him about the Punisher every now and then.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, oh, the creator of the Punisher, whatever, doesn't think cops should use that symbol. And like, wow.
Right.
He wants to remind us all the Punisher's a bad guy and not a good guy.
Yeah, I think he's a pro defund the police kind of guy.
Nice. Ed Via complains. Via, yeah, I don't know what. I guess it's Via probably. It's not like the word via satellite, right? It's probably Spanish. He complains that the Legionnaires are unable to defeat the Composite Legionnaire. And this new guy, Bounty, is able to do the work of 5 Legionnaires.
I don't remember Bounty. So there's been 2 Bounties.
Yeah, this is the original Bounty. He just looks like the 5 years later Bounty, but a guy instead of a girl.
Are they connected?
I believe there was going to be a connection between the 2, yeah. I don't know if they ever actually fleshed it out or not, but I think there was. I think the Bounty in this 234 is just like a bounty hunter. That's why he's called Bounty.
Right.
But he's like Golgo 13 or something, and he has like a gun. I think he's an assassin or a bounty hunter.
Does he like take over Dawnstar's mind, or is she just part of the same guild? Or
if I remember right, I think they explain that Bounty is like a spirit or or a parasite or something that takes over a body and controls it.
Mm-hmm.
And that would explain why Dawnstar's personality was different. And maybe they kill Dawnstar in that series? I don't really remember whatever happened to her.
I don't think so, but I don't think she was hanging around them by the end.
I remember it was one of the Jason Pearson issues. He drew the cover, and it's Bounty and I don't know, another one of those freedom fighter people who it was this woman, she was new, and they're like fighting, and I think they kill each other in that issue, maybe. Or maybe she like harms Dawnstar so much that she's on life support for the rest of the series or something like that.
Never did figure out what happened to her wings.
Must have hurt, whatever it was.
Yeah. Yeah, so this guy is questioning Wildfire's leadership, which probably right about. I don't picture Wildfire as being the best leader. That their strategy was crap, that they used to work together better, I guess.
Oh, yeah, he calls out the days when the Legion members could defeat menaces like Evillo. I think Evillo was only ever in one issue, but I don't know I don't know the story. I don't remember it.
It kind of becomes a little bit of a joke later, right?
Right. Up to this point, he'd only ever been in one issue.
Polar Boy have to marry his daughter or something weird like that.
Oh, that was the premise of one of them, I think, maybe. Ed Villa doesn't like Rick Estrada as the Legion artist.
Right.
Finds him too cartoonish.
Have you read Kung Fu Fighter? I wonder if that's any good.
I've read a handful of them. I found a bunch in a dollar bin.
Drawing any good?
Yeah, there's a handful of them, I think, where he does solo artwork without Jack Abel or Joe Staten doing the inks.
Right.
I think not a lot of it. I think there's some, maybe a majority of it, all except for 5 or 6 are a slick inker. I think maybe it's even Wally Wood inks him on some of those.
Wow.
So it looked a lot more realistic. It's like Karate Kid. There's only about whatever Baker's dozen of them or something.
Right. Yeah, I don't buy his rationale for not liking him, though. Saying his style added an inappropriate cartoonish touch. A lot of really great and dramatic stories have been drawn in a cartoonier fashion. So
yeah, this is just like he asks for Mike Nasser, you know, and it's like, oh, okay, we know what Mike Nasser draws like. He draws photo referenced, right? Like quote unquote realistic type of stuff. So that's what this guy wants. But yeah, we know that a cartoonist like Rick Estrada can do the gamut of storytelling, just like Ernie Colon is kind of like that too, where it looks a little cartoony, but this guy can tell a good story, you know.
I think Pearson kind of fits that. I mean, he seems, I guess Giffen's cartoony too in his way, but it seemed much cartoonier when I first saw Pearson's work than how I thought of Giffen's.
Yeah, it's kind of cartoony in a different way. It's more cartoony, like maybe like anime is or something. Right. Clean. But yeah, remember that letter we read where the dude just hated the Giffen artwork that was in Legion 313 or something? Mm-hmm. Said they all look like they're made out of rubber and look like Tom Selleck or something. Just totally nonsensical.
Right.
But yeah, I think there's a lot of people out there who do not like it when their artwork veers into caricature kind of territory or I'm drawing a blank on the word I want to say, but
I don't know, more abstract.
Yeah, stylized, or where the people just kind of push the style into exaggeration. Right. I guess that's just a word. Exaggeration is a word. Like they don't want that. That's too phony. It's not believable. Like if a person reacts wildly, that's all of a sudden I'm reading a Tex Avery thing, and I'm not reading a serious hero adventure or something. I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know if there was a big sea change, but of course, like The Dark Knight Returns has a lot of cartooniness in it. A lot of caricature-y stuff. And obviously that was like the biggest comic there was other than Watchmen. Then McFarlane was huge, and he's cartoony.
Like, I wonder how people like this feel about that. Like, because obviously, I'm almost certain there's 10 years difference or something between when this comic came out and when Dark Knight Returns came out.
Right.
But I bet there's a lot of fans who are like George Perez, Neal Adams,
right,
Kurt Swan. These are the perfect comic book artists. Everything looks so real or whatever. And then all of a sudden, like, you see this drawing of Batman, and he's as wide as 5 people and whatever.
Yeah, I think we're still in like kind of the Neal Adams phase, where like he's like the artist everyone aspires. Like he's the pinnacle of good still in this period, because right around the same time this comic came out was when Jack Kirby came back to Marvel, and like everybody hated him. He was getting the fans, he hadn't been gone that long. He left like in 70, came back around 78-ish, 77. And everyone's like, this guy's crap. He's too cartoony. We want more realistic art, more serious art. The Neal Adams style had kind of become the prevalent one, and he was out of fashion.
I'm just wondering, though, like, it's the same generation of people reading comics in the late 70s, and then 10 years after that, when the popular thing is Dark Knight Returns, like the biggest selling thing ever. Like,
right,
those readers who couldn't stand the Return Jack Kirby, couldn't stand the second Keith Giffen style, or whatever, the third Keith Giffen style.
Yeah.
Like, how did they feel about when everything is aspiring to be a Dark Knight Returns look? Right. Were they just pulling their hair out, or did they finally come around?
I mean,
I'm sure it's different for everybody, I guess.
But I imagine it legitimized it to a lot of people.
I bet there's a lot of people who are like, well, I think Frank Miller should just be a writer.
Right.
Batman Year One is a far superior book to that ugly.
Well, even that's kind of cartoony, right? I mean, it all depends on how you define that, but
yeah, I suppose it looks like Alex Toth more than
right.
Whatever crazy influence.
Asterix, Polyp, or like his later stuff.
Oh, right. But I mean, compared to Frank Miller, Dark Knight Returns, that Mazzucchelli stuff it's different.
I remember thinking that, I just wanted to squeeze this in real quick. When I first saw that, I didn't feel this way about. I was immediately sold on Dark Knight Returns, maybe because of the fancy production values and the way it looked like it had been airbrushed and painted. But Year One, it looked like a kid's comic to me, to my 12-year-old eyes. Huh. Like everyone looked a little too cute or something.
Weird. Cute, huh? I mean,
I think the thick brush lines, and it just made me think of like, I don't know, like 1010 or 1010's not a good example. That's not done with the brush, but
I could maybe see a connection between that and like a Super Friends or something.
Right.
Kind of style.
Yeah. But like a children's book, children's illustrations kind of reminded me of. But
I mean, I wouldn't ever think of that as cute exactly.
Right.
Yeah, it was totally different from even like the issue before that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just read that it was the issue that came out right after the fourth Year One issue,
Mm-hmm.
And it was like Max Allan Collins and Dave Cockrum or something, and it was it was just back to business as usual, kind of a Batman comic,
Mm-hmm.
And like I don't know, it's like they just did not continue with the momentum that the Year One miniseries had, and I don't know why. I don't know if
they weren't prepared for that. Like both, that's the same is true with even the Dark Knight Returns. They didn't expect. It was a few years before the regular comics kind of caught up.
What blows my mind is like they knew that Dark Knight Returns, it was its own thing. They gave it had its own books. Meanwhile, Year One, it's just like, oh, I buy Batman every month. Oh, this one looks a little different. They did 4 of those, and then just went back to business as usual. And like if there was buzz and I for me as like a lapsed comic reader or something, somebody's like, you got to check out this Batman Year One storyline. And I go and I read that and I'm like, yeah, this is great. And I get the second one. I go back and I buy the first one. And then I get 2 more months go by and I read these. I'm like, yeah, all right, I'm going to keep reading this fucking thing. And then it's like, nope, the next issue is, Robin, he's getting pushed around at school by, or whatever it is, It's something stupid.
Yeah, I mean, that would be unheard of now. It would always be its own series now. They'd never seed it within the regular series. But I kind of miss that I don't like that they don't do that anymore. I think it's fun when they do.
I mean, I don't feel like they ever really did do it, but maybe I just wasn't reading the right stuff where it's just this night and day change from one issue to the next just for a couple issues. But it was just a stunt for Frank
I mean,
Miller.
like Spider-Man did that a few times, like Craven's Last Hunt by Mike Zeck. I don't know if you've ever, I think might be DeMatteis as well. But that just took over the Spider-Man books over like a month or two out of nowhere, and the tone and the art was much darker. It's out of nowhere. And then it went back to regular Spider-Man immediately after. And they did a couple like that.
Yeah, that has to be kind of an isolated or not isolated, but it has to be just a product of that time in the marketplace. Like we're just talking about Howard Chaykin or Walt Simonson doing, like they just drop in and do one issue of Legion of Superheroes.
If you get a big legend, especially to like do, if they want to do a Superman, like, and it might be less the case right at this moment because comics are kind of waning, but like in the 90s, Simonson wanted to do a Superman issue. They gave him like a Superman special, #1. They weren't going to waste him just on a regular fill-in issue. They were going to put a #1 on it,
Right. And that was after like the Batman Year One period, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And then prior to that, 10 years prior to that, if Walt Simonson wanted to do something, they would just be like, oh, we can fit you in. We'll get Paul Levitz to write a story that's appropriate for you, and we'll fit you in.
Right. And then, in fact, they had a few times. So.
Yeah, but then Batman Year One is in this sweet spot where it's like, well, we're really tentative about doing anything that isn't part of the regular Batman monthly routine, even for a big superstar who just did Daredevil and he probably just did Dark Knight Returns. I don't even know. Like they still like the marketplace still wasn't right to break out these things, this one story by these stars as something besides like the monthly shit. I don't know. It's weird. I want to know the thinking behind Batman Year One.
Right.
Oh yeah. Back to this letter.
Did he say he wanted? Who did he want? Al Milgrom.
Yeah, he wants Al Milgrom. Al Milgrom, I guess, is at this point is the editor along with Paul Levitz. I'm not sure how they're dividing the labor out, but says maybe Al Milgrom could draw some Legion.
I don't know if he ever did.
For a while, Milgrom was the go-to Giffen inker in like the 2000s, somewhere along there. But like after like Al Gordon and who like Charlie Adler or whatever. But then before Scott Koblish, who was doing everything now, it was Milgrom. I never really felt it was a very good fit, but it was like they put these 70s guys together and thought they'd be a good fit together.
Milgrom's hit and miss for me, illustration-wise, but he's done some good inking jobs here and there. Like he inked some Simonson Fantastic Four that I thought was almost inked better than Simonson's.
Yeah, it seems like, I mean, I don't know well enough what his inking looks like. Just on that Giffen stuff, he seems like he has, maybe that's why they put him on there. He has maybe a thicker, chunkier line, maybe. Based on what I know of the Milgrom on Giffen inks, yeah, he might be a good fit for Simonson.
Yeah.
Kind of a little bit ragged or... But they say no. Al Milgrom's not going to be able to draw because he's drawn Firestorm and Hawkman and Showcase. I don't know if he's doing inks or full artwork or what on those.
I think he created or co-created Firestorm.
Yeah, I thought he was super cool on Super
I did
Friends.
too.
And the figure, the Superpowers toy was good.
I just thought that was such a mind-blowingly neat idea when I was a kid. Like, these two guys fused together. Well, I believe that wraps it up. Unless do you want to go over the statement of ownership, management, and circulation?
Yes.
Actually, I think we did that once, didn't we? Oh God, I was just joking.
Well, the interesting thing about the statement of ownership is it shows how many copies they publish and how many copies they sell or don't sell. Mm-hmm. And so the average number of issues for the last year is 441,000. But then the single issue nearest to filing date, 352,000. It's quite a few copies. I think nowadays, what is it, like 10,000 comics are published or something of a single issue, or less probably.
Yeah. It's kind of like TV. Like they'll never get the viewership numbers today that they got 30 years ago.
But it's also a different environment where they printed a bunch, expecting a bunch to be returned and destroyed.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So of the actual number of copies sold is something like 180,000 or something. So they sold about a third of what they printed or something like that.
I mean, I don't have any sense of that stuff, but it seems like if you're sending comics to gas stations everywhere, like I wouldn't be surprised if half of them didn't sell.
It says returns from newsagents, average number of copies during preceding 12 months, 252,000. But they publish on average 441,000. So actually more than half are returned. I was also interested in the number of subscribers through the mail for Legion, and it's the average is 3,478. So you got 3,000 people buying Legion of Superheroes every month at this point in history, by mail, by subscription.
Be interesting to compare like the numbers with a book that we know did well,
right? Or to find out which one does well. Because, right. I mean, you could maybe assume this is representative of just about every comic, but there's probably ups and downs.
Right.
Letters page, Legion Outpost of Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes, 239. See you in 30 days.
Bye-bye.